So I know Thanksgiving is an American thing and that it happened last week, but I still feel like I have to give my thanks. Or more specifically, I'd like to thank AMD for keeping Nvidia in check and forcing them to give us as consumers better products at better prices. And in this video, I'll be taking a look at one of said products, namely the RTX 2060 Super. But not just any 2060 Super, but the most absolutely gorgeous 2060 Super you can buy right now. That's right, it is MSI's RTX 2060 Super Gaming X. So let's see whether this card is all flash or whether it has the fire to go with it. Now, if you clicked on this video hoping to see some sweet specs, then I've got you covered. And if you didn't, just skip ahead a few seconds. The RTX 2060 Super is built on Nvidia's new Turing architecture, just like the non-Super 2060. But as you'd expect, it features a few super upgrades over its predecessor. The card comes equipped with 2,176 CUDA cores, which will handle most of the graphical heavy lifting, along with 34 dedicated ray tracing cores and 272 tensor cores, which power Nvidia's DLSS anti-aliasing tech. Memory-wise, the 2060 Super ups the ante with 8 GB of GDDR6 running at 14 gigabits per second, with a 256-bit memory bus and a memory bandwidth of 448 gigabytes per second. Nvidia's own reference card runs at a base and boost clock of 1470 and 1650 MHz respectively, while MSI's Gaming X bumps that boost clock to 1695 MHz. And it does so without also upping the card's TDP, which stays comfortably at 175 watts. And lastly, output-wise, we've got 3 display ports and a single HDMI 2.0 port. And lastly, it's currently on sale for $414 on Amazon, and if you buy it via the link in the description, the channel gets a small kickback and you get a new graphics card, and my thanks. And for my fellow South Africans out there, the card is currently going for around 9,300 Rand. And with all that out of the way, let's see what MSI's version of the 2060 Super actually brings to the table. Cooling wise, MSI went with their Twin Furzer 7 design, which features 2 Torx 3.0 fans with alternating dispersion and traditional fan blades, along with a beefy, redesigned heatsink. All of which should translate into some really decent temperatures, even if you're in South Africa, which I'm pretty sure is trying to kill me with this friggin' heat wave. Oh, and the fans only really kick in when the GPU actually needs it to, which is around 60 degrees Celsius. Which means a longer lifespan for the fans, a quieter system overall, and speaking from personal experience, a lot less dust buildup. Now, before I actually run the card through the benchmark gauntlet, can we all just take a minute to appreciate how gorgeous this thing is? I mean, just look at it. The silver brushed metal backplate looks and feels amazing. I mean, it's there to reinforce the card and dissipate a little heat while it's at it, but it's really only there to be stared at longingly. It also perfectly complements the face of the card, which is where the real drooling kicks in. The silver and black aesthetic is something I'll never get tired of. The sharp edges are kind of badass. And even though the majority of the shroud itself is plastic, it still looks and feels premium. And I know many of you aren't all that into RGB lighting, but as someone who is, hot dang, MSI really stepped up their game on this one. There are 5 different lighting zones on the card, 1 illuminating the MSI logo on the side of the card, and 4 kind of hugging the silver parts of the shroud, all oh so perfectly diffused. And with the help of the Mystic Light software, it's also super customizable. My system is kind of geared towards a more red and black look, so the red breathing effect is kind of my go-to. But if you want to go full RGB puke, then you can totally do that. Or if you prefer something a little less distracting, then you should probably stick with the static color or just turn the lighting off completely. The Gaming X 2060 Super is the best looking 2060 Super around. And if you disagree, I mean, you're allowed to be wrong. That's just how it is. You go be wrong. I'll be right. But enough drooling, let's see what this thing is actually capable of. Now, my test system isn't exactly ideal for benchmarking, but at least it's pretty realistic. It's rocking Ryzen 7 1700 clocked at 3.8 GHz, 16 gigs of memory running at 2400 MHz, and it's all plugged into an X370 Gaming K4 from ASRock. So basically, if you're running anything higher than that, then your results will definitely be a lot better than mine. I also ran the card at both 1080p and 1440p because it should be ideal for either of those. First up is Apex Legends at max quality settings, which averaged 137 FPS at 1080p with really good 1% and 0.1% lows, meaning the game ran oh so buttery smooth. It was kind of a similar story when I bumped the resolution up to 1440p, where the game ran rock solid with an average FPS of 107 and very tight 1% and 0.1% lows. Of course, if you're running a 144Hz 1440p monitor like the beast behind me, MSI's Optics MPG 27CQ, then you're going to probably want to lower the settings just a little bit to hit that 144 FPS sweet spot. Anyway, Overwatch got similar results running on the high preset at 1080p with an average FPS of 131 with no stuttering in sight. Unlike with Apex, it seems Overwatch didn't much mind the jump to 1440p resolution, averaging 127 FPS with similarly solid 1% and 0.1% lows. And on to the single player experience. I fired up Assassin's Creed Odyssey with a very high preset, and at 1080p, the game settled in at an average FPS of 64 with 1% and 0.1% lows never dropping lower than 36. The bump to 1440p didn't have too much of an impact on the card's performance, where it managed to average around 55 FPS. Borderlands 3 is up next, and at 1080p running on the Ultra preset, the card performed just about the same as an Assassin's Creed Odyssey, with an average FPS of 64. At 1440p, the game did take a little more of a hit than before, averaging 51 FPS. There was some minor stuttering during the benchmark, as you can tell from the 1% and 0.1% lows, but the game is still a little buggy and its performance will undoubtedly get better with more updates in the coming months. The last game I tested was Far Cry New Dawn, which ran like an absolute dream at both 1080p and 1440p, with an average FPS of 68 and 66 respectively. Neither resolution presented any noticeable stuttering, but curiously, the 0.1% results were actually better when running the game at 1440p. I'd probably attribute that to my Ryzen 1700 just not being able to quite keep up with the card at 1080p. If we take a look at the card's max core clock, we can really see why the numbers were so solid. With MSI's factory overclock and Nvidia's GPU boost doing their thing, the card came in at an impressive 2025 megahertz. 2 gigahertz. That's not bad. That's actually pretty good. I like that. And the reason the GPU was able to actually hit that speed becomes clear when we actually take a look at our temps. At idle, the card sat around 37 degrees Celsius, which is actually kind of good considering it's about, what, like 2 degrees over ambient? This heat is actually killing me. But it's not killing the card though. And even after an hour or two of heavy gaming, it only maxed out at 70 degrees Celsius, and the fans barely even needed to kick in. Okay, so now that we have the specs, the numbers, all of that sorted out, let's get to why you're actually watching this video. Should you buy this card? Well, the answer really isn't all that complicated. It's yes. If you want stellar 1080p performance at max settings, really rock solid gameplay at 1440p with tweaked settings, want to dip your toes into RTX, want really decent temperatures, and just love the look of the card as much as I do, then yeah, it's definitely worth considering. Sure, it's not the cheapest 2060 Super around, and it might not even be the coolest or highest performing. This is, after all, the only one I've been able to test at this point. And heck, if you prefer red over green, and aren't buying into the whole RTX thing, AMD's 5700 XT, which I'll be doing a review of sometime soon, so get subscribed for that, it'll do you much better. But if you're sold on getting a 2060 Super, then this is definitely one you should be considering. And that about wraps it up. If you liked the video, hit that button, get subscribed if you want to see more videos just like this. And for those of you who want to support the channel so I can keep making videos like this, I will link my Patreon down below. So yeah, go check that out. And finally, a big thanks to MSI South Africa for sending over the 2060 Super Gaming X so that I can actually review it and play around with it. MVPs. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video, I hope. I don't know. I might actually die from this heat. It is extremely hot. I can't wait to end this video so I can turn the fan on. Actually, I'm not even going to wait for that. I'm just going to turn it on right now.